So I was going to start a quick little scrapwood project, and I'm looking through my stash and I saw these 2 chunks of a shrub that have been drying in my shop for 2 years now, and I thought, let's incorporate them into this project. So I got some walnut, I got some cherry, some padauk, some Osage orange, some other little strips, and some logs. Why not? I wrote the date on 2021 March so I would remember, and I just slapped some random paint on the end, and then I just threw them on the shelf, and they are pretty light feeling. So this is from an Amelanchier shrub from our yard. An Amelanchier is also known as a Serviceberry or a shadbush. If you're in the northern parts of North America, it's a great native plant. The birds love it and produces a whole ton of berries and makes great jam. So I think the bandsaw is my best bet for slicing these into usable pieces of wood, and I need to do that safely. So I've got this plastic runner and a piece of scrap plywood, and I'm going to make myself a little sled. So I'm first going to drill some holes in this track. Then I'll just fasten it into place. I've got a line marked, which is the distance to the blade to the track. Doesn't need to be perfect. That fits in here and slides right past the blade. Now we need a way to fasten the wood down. I'm going to attach this piece of scrap wood at the front of the jig. And then at this end, I'm just going to fit it to the log, and then when I do the shorter one, I'll just move it. And I'm going to try to position the logs for the maximum yield. So I think I'm going to try to slice that piece off, and that should hopefully give me 2 half-decent boards for my little project. Everything is an experiment, eh? Hopefully this works. Let's try that. And then at the other end also. Well, there's my sled. The idea is the blade's going to go along here and should give us something flat. And these screws are out of the way of the blade and they will come out again. And that's my first ever look inside. Very, very green. Very green, interesting. I have never done something like that before. I've seen a couple of other videos on YouTube, but that worked perfectly. Kept my hands well away from the blade and took something that's round and held it in a safe way, because if you try to freehand this through the saw, probably bad things would happen. Now the second log is shorter, so no problem. We'll just take it apart. This one seems a bit oblong, so I want this side to be the cut part. And then on with the second one. Then I just turned it 90 degrees and fastened it in the jig, and now I will take off this so I will have a right angle. There we go. We've turned a log into something with a right angle, so now I can cut boards out of that. So let's check the moisture content on this stuff. It's been sitting here for 2 years, but it was pretty thick. Oh, that's pretty soft wood. That's good to know. Light comes on between 9%. Let's try somewhere else. There is 8%. Let's try the other log. Wow, that's, yeah, 8%. Oh, 8%. Again, 8%. So mostly 8%, a couple of 9%. That means this wood is perfectly good. I can use it. Now, should I use it? Should you build anything with Serviceberry or Amelanchier wood? I don't know, it felt pretty soft. We're just having fun in the shop here today. I saved this wood kind of on a lark. It's not super special to me. It's just something from my backyard. Again, I just thought it would be fun to play in the shop today with this, and you know, maybe you do have a tree or a shrub or something in your yard that's special to you. A pear tree or you know, something that means something. It's kind of neat to know that it's actually not that hard to take a little log and turn it into something. But speaking of which, let's slice some boards out of this. For this log, I figured I could get 2 decent boards out of it that are about 3/4 of an inch, and then so then I'll plane them down to like 5/8 or something. After bandsawing, I did run them through the planer just to take them down nicely, and I put the edge over the joiner. It is definitely a very green wood. Okay, so I've successfully processed the log from a shrub into a board. Now let's finish up this playing in the shop time and make something with it. And no, this is not a cutting board, but the techniques are pretty much the same. A few weeks ago, I built a base for my Mac computer and I made it out of multicolored woods. I threw up a short on it and it was posted to my Instagram, and I just thought I'd do that again for another computer that I have, and I thought that was a good use for this because it's like, again, this is very soft. It's kind of an experiment, so let's just play with it, and it would kind of neat to see this compared against other species of wood. So starting in the middle, here's some of the Amelanchier, a thin strip of maple, and then some walnut, and another bit of the Amelanchier, a little bit of padauk, and some Baltic birch, make some interesting stripes and texture, some cherry, and some maple. So let's get it glued up. After I took the piece out of clamps, I scraped the glue off the back, and then I ran it through the planer just enough to get it down to a nice parallel thickness. I wanted to keep this one fairly thick. And then over on the table saw, I trimmed the sides down. It's roughly 9 and a bit square, kind of, somewhere between 9 and 10. I don't really care, you know, I just measured the computer and worked off of that. I rounded over the edges with a router. I took a nice chamfer across the front because I think that makes for an interesting little front. And finally, over at the router table, I routed out a slot because I use these little external drives, and it's kind of neat to have a place where it will just hold it nicely because they are really light and they will just flip around on your table. And it was time for some sanding, which didn't take long because it was really nice surface on this. For a finish, I'm just going to apply some Danish oil. Simple wipe on. And curious to see what it's going to do. Oh, let's just pour it on. There we go. And as always, it makes the walnut and the padauk stand up and say, hey, look at me. The Amelanchier is still pretty green. Yeah, I like doing the plywood. That adds for an interesting little streak of interest down the center there. And here's the finished little project. I added some feet on the bottom. I do think that the two pieces of Baltic birch plywood make for a really interesting look. I don't know that I would do this on an actual cutting board that sees food, but this is a display piece and it looks really neat. Again, this is the Amelanchier, the Serviceberry boards that I made. You can really see the pith is in these, but it was really stable, so it'll be interesting to see how this lasts over a year. I left just a little bit of a bark inclusion here. This is going to be covered up anyways because I wanted a fairly nice and thick base for this. And just a reminder, this is maple, this is cherry, this is the Baltic birch plywood, this is the Amelanchier walnut, a skinny strip of maple, and then another piece of the Amelanchier. And yeah, I know, it's green. It's green in its raw form, and with some Danish oil on it, it is still definitely yellow-green. I will be curious to see how this looks after a year, say, of exposure. As I've said a few times, today was about playing in the shop. I'm not seriously suggesting we should all start milling green lumber out of serviceberries. I think you should all plant them. It's a great native shrub with tasty berries on it, but no. As you know, today was about playing, is about finding out, can I actually turn a shrub from my yard into usable lumber? And yeah, you can. It's not that hard, and you can have some fun with it too. I'm going to close now with some pictures of this in my office with my computer on it, and as always, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you on the next one.